The road stretched endlessly ahead, coiling through the forested hills like a snake swallowed by fog. Ethan leaned forward, squinting through the windshield, his eyelids fluttering every few seconds. His knuckles were pale from gripping the steering wheel too hard. "How far have I been driving?" he asked himself. The digital clock on his dash blinked 8:42 p.m., though he couldn't remember what time he had started. His phone sat dead in the cup holder, battery long gone. His stomach twisted with hunger. His limbs ached with the dull weight of exhaustion. All he wanted was a hot meal, a soft bed, and a place to rest his thoughts. The headlights cut through a thick wall of mist curling in from the forest. Signs of civilization had vanished hours ago. No gas stations, no rest stops, no towns. Just trees and hills and a silence that felt unnatural. He rolled down the window slightly, hoping the cold air would shock him awake. Instead, it brought the sharp scent of damp pine and something else, something faintly metallic. He tried his phone again. Still nothing. No bars. No signal. No help. "Looks like I'm sleeping in the car tonight," he mumbled. Then, through the mist ahead, something flickered. A light, then two, then a whole cluster, faint but steady. As he crested a small hill, a sign emerged from the fog. "Welcome to Mist Hill." The numbers had been scratched off. Bullet holes riddled the faded sign. Below it, someone had scrawled in red spray paint, "Turn back." Ethan slowed the car. A nervous flicker danced up his spine, but fatigue smothered the alarm in his brain. Maybe it was a prank. Teenagers messing around. At this point, anything with a roof was better than the front seat of his Corolla. The car rolled down into the valley where the lights were brighter now. Dim yellows and sickly greens illuminating the outline of a town that time had clearly forgotten. Dilapidated houses leaned at odd angles. Shops with shattered windows and boarded doors stood frozen in the past. No movement, no cars, not even stray animals. But one building stood alive in the fog. A diner, flickering in a buzz of pale red neon. Open. The P glitched on and off like a heartbeat. Ethan pulled up and parked. He shut off the engine and sat there for a moment. The silence pressed against the car like a physical thing. The diner's windows glowed with a dull yellow light, the only sign of warmth in the whole town. He stepped out. Gravel crunched under his shoes. The fog thickened as he crossed the lot. The door creaked open with surprising ease. Inside, the air was warm, almost too warm. The diner looked like a 1950s postcard. Red vinyl booths, silver-edged tables, a long counter lined with stools. Black and white checkered tile stretched across the floor. A jukebox stood silent in the corner. A single man stood behind the counter. Tall, gaunt, wearing a spotless white apron and an old-fashioned soda jerk cap. His skin was waxy pale. His smile was wide and fixed, like it had been carved into his face. His eyes didn't seem to blink. "Evenin'," he said, voice gravelly and echoing slightly, as though the walls repeated him a half-second later. "Long night on the road?" "Yeah," Ethan said, shaking off the unease in his gut. "Didn't think I'd see anything out here." "Not many do," the man said. "You're lucky. Got a fresh pot of stew on. Coffee too." "Hungry?" Ethan's stomach answered before he could. He slid into a booth. "Yeah, real hungry." The man returned moments later with a steaming bowl and a chipped mug of coffee. The stew smelled like beef, potatoes, carrots. Comfort food. But something about the smell was off, almost sweet. Still, Ethan was starving. He dug in. The stew was thick, filling, oddly chewy. Not bad, just weird. "Room upstairs if you want to crash," the man offered, still smiling. "No charge." "That'd be great. You run this place all alone?" The man nodded. "Always have. Always will." The words echoed in Ethan's head like a bell struck underwater. Upstairs, the hallway was narrow, lined with 4 doors, each identical. One at the end was marked for The man's voice echoed in Ethan's memory. Last on the left. The room was modest. Bed, dresser, mirror, a single dusty window. He sat on the bed and rubbed his temples. The coffee was making him jittery. His heart thumped strangely fast. Sleep pulled at him like a tide. He didn't even take off his shoes. He lay down and let his eyes close. Something was breathing. He jolted awake. The room was pitch black. The bulb in the hallway flickered beyond the door, casting erratic light under the frame. He wasn't alone. Soft breathing, raspy, uneven, came from the corner of the room. Ethan turned his head slowly. The mirror, but it didn't reflect the room. It showed a different place entirely. A dark space with dozens of pale faces staring directly at him. Their mouths moved in silence, their eyes wide with pleading and horror. A woman pressed her hands to the glass, mouthing words over and over again. Run, run, run. Ethan jumped to his feet. The door gone, replaced by a flat wall. The mirror began to ripple. Something was pushing through it, distorting the glass as if it were soft fabric. Cold wind blasted through the room, and the breathing grew louder, now accompanied by whispers and soft crying. He backed into the corner. The temperature dropped. His breath came out in mist. The mirror shattered, and Ethan woke up, back in his car. The sun was rising. Birdsong filled the air. The mist was gone. His phone buzzed full signal. 7:03 a.m. He looked around. No sign of the diner. No town. Nothing but the empty road and forest. He checked the GPS. The nearest town was 32 miles behind him. Had he dreamed it all? He rubbed his face, started the engine, and began driving away, heart still pounding. Then, in the rearview mirror, just for a second, pale face, smiling, and behind it dozens more, watching. You never really leave Mist Hill. You just forget, until it's too late.
3 weeks later, the sun hung low over the mountain highway, casting long shadows through the winding pines. Mara pulled into a turnout, her rental car coughing into silence. She stepped out, rubbing the stiffness from her legs. She had been driving for hours, longer than she'd meant to. She glanced at her phone. No signal. Great, she muttered. Figures. According to the map she'd downloaded before losing reception, there was a small town nearby Mist Hill, though she hadn't seen a single building for miles. She leaned on the hood, debating whether to turn around, when a flicker of light caught her eye through the trees ahead. A neon sign, just barely visible through the rising mist. Open. Curiosity and hunger won out. Mara walked toward it, drawn like a moth. The fog thickened as she approached. The building emerged slowly from the white and old roadside diner, straight out of time. Chrome trim, red booths, faded signage, a humming neon sign that buzzed as she neared the door. She hesitated only a moment before pushing it open. A small bell rang overhead. Warm air enveloped her. The scent of coffee and something stewing on the stove. The place looked untouched, preserved. A man stood behind the counter, tall and wiry, dressed in a spotless white apron. His smile was wide, too wide, and perfectly still. Evening, he said. Long day on the road? Mara nodded. I thought this place was abandoned. He chuckled, dry, hollow. Oh, we've been here a long time. We don't get many visitors. Not anymore. He slid a menu toward her, but Mara barely noticed. Her eyes had drifted to something sitting beside the register. A guest book. Old and cracked, its leather cover faded and frayed. Something about it tugged at her curiosity. Without thinking, she reached out and opened it. The pages were yellowed and brittle, names scrawled in fading ink. Most entries were decades old. Then one, written in a rushed hand. Ethan Reed. June 21st. Mara frowned. The name meant nothing to her. And yet, reading it sent a shiver down her spine, as if a thread deep inside her memory had been plucked, one she didn't remember weaving. She glanced up. The man behind the counter was still watching her. "Something wrong?" he asked, voice unchanged, but the air in the room had shifted. Subtly. Heavier. Stiller. "No," Mara said, closing the book carefully. "Just, the name looked familiar." He nodded slowly. "They all do, eventually." He turned and walked toward the kitchen. Behind the counter, a large mirror hung on the wall. In it, Mara thought she saw something move, shapes pressing against the glass. Hands. Faces. Eyes. Then the jukebox clicked to life. A record spun up on its own. An old tune filled the room. "Only You" by the Platters. Soft. Sweet. Haunting. And far below the diner, beneath rotting floorboards and hollowed ground, Ethan screamed. But no one ever hears the screams from Mist Hill. Not unless they've already stayed the night.
Jonah Reed had always been the responsible one. That was what people said, anyway. Older brother, steady job, clean car, clear life plan. Ethan was the wanderer, the dreamer, the ghost. 3 weeks had passed since Ethan's last message. Not a word since his usual "made it through Colorado. We'll call soon." But the call never came, and neither did he. Now, Jonah was behind the wheel of Ethan's disappearance. He'd filed a report. He'd spoken with State Patrol, searched abandoned motels, messaged friends from Ethan's road trip route. All dead ends. Then, one detail jumped out from Ethan's GPS history. A faint ping before the phone had gone dark. A location name Jonah didn't recognize. Mist Hill. He tried to search for it. Nothing. No listings. No maps. No news articles. Just a handful of vague mentions on old forums, mostly ghost hunting boards and urban legend sites. They all said the same things. It's not on any real map. You don't find it, it finds you. If someone you know went there, they're already gone. Stay out of the diner. Jonah didn't believe in ghost stories, but he believed in Ethan. So he drove. The highway curled higher into the hills. Trees closed in like ribs around his spine. Mist rolled across the road in thick veils, and his car's temperature gauge began to dip even though it was a warm July evening. Jonah's phone screen went dark. No signal. Of course. He spotted the turnout almost too late. A narrow gravel shoulder at the edge of a hill. The trees thinned, revealing something below. Something that shouldn't be there. A town. Barely. Just bones and fog. One building glowed faintly. Red neon. Open. Jonah parked. He sat still for a long moment, engine ticking quietly as it cooled. He didn't remember falling asleep. But when he opened his eyes again, it was darker. He stepped out of the car. The air was too quiet. No birds. No wind. Only the sound of gravel crunching under his boots. He walked toward the diner. Inside, everything was warm. Familiar. Too familiar. A red booth in the corner looked just like the one in the photo Ethan had once sent him from a road trip. Same checker floor. Same jukebox. And then he saw it, sitting beside the register. A guest book. Jonah picked it up and flipped through it. His own name wasn't there, but Ethan's was. Ethan Reed, June 21st. Fresh ink. No dust. Jonah's chest tightened. Behind the counter, a man stood, gaunt, pale, smiling like someone had wired his face into position. "Evening," he said. "Long drive." Jonah narrowed his eyes. "My brother came through here. Ethan Reed. You see him?" The man tilted his head. "We get all kinds here. Most don't leave." Jonah stared. "Where is he?" The smile never changed. "Maybe you should stay the night. You look tired. Got a room ready. No charge." Jonah took a slow step back. The jukebox clicked on behind him. A song began to play. Unchained melody. The floor seemed to breathe beneath his feet. He turned and fled the diner, heart pounding. Back in his car, Jonah slammed the door, started the engine, and froze. In the rearview mirror, the diner was gone. So was the town. Just trees, mist, road. But on the passenger seat, the guest book, open. A new line written in shaking ink. Jonah Reed, July 18th. He hadn't touched a pen. He hadn't written a thing. Yet there it was, already written.
The coffee was warm. Too warm. Mara took a cautious sip, but the heat didn't burn her tongue, it didn't taste like anything. Not bitter. Not smooth. Just flat. Hollow. She set the cup down and glanced again at the guest book sitting near the register. It was closed now, though she didn't remember shutting it. She could still see Ethan Reed written behind her eyes. She hadn't touched her stew. The man behind the counter, she still hadn't caught his name, watched her with a stillness that made her skin crawl. He didn't move. Didn't blink. He stood like a wax figure, smiling as if wired into position. Mara tried to steady her voice. "So, you run this place alone?" The man nodded. "Always have. Always will." Same answer as before. Same cadence. Her fingers twitched. "I should probably get back on the road," she said, reaching for her coat. "No need to rush," he replied smoothly. "Fog's getting thick out there. You'll want to stay inside. Safer that way." She glanced outside. The fog was thicker than she remembered. It pressed against the windows like a living thing, white and heavy. Beyond the glass, the road was gone. The hills were gone. Just a swirling wall of nothing. She stood anyway. "Thank you for the food," she said, and began moving toward the door. "You haven't finished," the man said. "Guests don't leave hungry." Something about the way he said guests made her stomach tighten. She pushed the door open. Outside, the silence hit her like a wall. Her footsteps were muffled. The fog swallowed the sound. The air was colder now, biting. Her car was still parked exactly where she'd left it. She opened the door and slid inside, started the engine. Dashboard lit up. Fuel, full. Phone, no signal. Clock, 11:42 p.m. She blinked. That wasn't possible. She'd arrived just after sunset. It had only been 20 minutes, hadn't it? She turned on the headlights. The beam went about 10 feet before being swallowed by the fog. Still, she drove. She followed the gravel path back up the hill, heart pounding. Her tires crunched on rock and wet earth. Trees emerged from the fog like drifting shadows. She drove for 10 minutes. 15. 20. No sign of the highway. The GPS, completely blank. She passed a wooden sign on the side of the road. "Welcome to Mist Hill, Pop." Her hands went numb on the wheel. She'd just come from there. But there it was again. Back at the diner, the man behind the counter smiled wider. He opened the guest book, flipped to the last page, and added a new line beneath Ethan and Jonah's names. Mara Elwood, July 18th. He shut the book gently and turned toward the window. Far in the fog, headlights blinked through the white, growing closer. Returning. Mara didn't remember turning around. Didn't remember choosing to drive back. She only knew her hands were on the wheel. Her foot on the gas. And the fog was smiling.